The Car Dealer Podcast is sponsored by Auto Trader. John, do you know why I, like nearly 14,000 other dealers, work with Auto Trader?
No, but I have a feeling you're going to tell me.
Well, with around 84 million consumer visits each month, it connects us with more engaged car buyers than anyone else in the UK. And there's the ability to reserve cars when the dealership is closed.
So you can stick to your strict 8 p.m. bedtime.
Exactly. And the Auto Trader team are always on hand to offer their insights, ensure we get the very best from our package, and ultimately sell more cars.
Well, that's good, because you are going to need all the help you can get.
Oi, less of that. Dealers, if you want to find out more, log on to trade.autotrader.co.uk.
Welcome back to the Car Dealer Podcast, where we pick our favourite stories of the week and ask an industry guest to choose which were the best. I'm John Ray, and joining me this week is James. Hello there, fancy seeing you here. I'm glad you are, because today I'm going to show you this beautiful 2009 Kia Sorento Baggett. James, hi.
Have you been watching my videos, John?
No, it's just in my brain.
Of course you haven't. You've just been at the dealership when I've been recording them, haven't you? Yes.
Yep.
How are you, John? Nice to see you.
Yes, I only saw you 12 hours ago, so it's nice to see you again.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. We've spent a lot of time together recently, haven't we?
Yeah, we've had another mini break. I mean, I think I've probably spent more time with you than your lady wife has.
Yes. No, that is definitely true, yeah. Can you hear my builders in the background?
No, you're just showing off now.
Well, they're smashing up my garden, so
Right.
If you hear that, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to make you aware that it's not me banging the desk.
No, can't hear any of it. Anyway, say what we've been doing then. Where have we been?
What have we been doing? We've been buying more cars, haven't we, John? And you actually came along to help me. So we bought some more imported vehicles that we didn't import. Somebody else imported, but we went and bought them. So I bought 10 cars. No, I bought 7 cars and took a couple on sale or return that he couldn't sell himself. So we thought we'd give him a go. One of them, quite excited, a Suzuki Carry. Yes, you were excited.
Joe is particularly excited by that.
Yes, which is basically a very, very small pickup with a payload of 350 kilograms. And I was telling my builders about that, and they said that is probably about 5 bags of sand, so it's effectively useless as a pickup. So who knows we're going to sell that to, John?
Well, I think the thing is, you've got quite close proximity to the Isle of Wight, haven't you? And on the Isle of Wight, that's considered quite a large vehicle.
That is true. That is true. And we've been inundated with messages since we launched our WhatsApp number last week, John.
Have we?
No. I had one message this morning. I woke up this morning to write my Substack, and I looked at my phone, and there was a voice note, and I thought someone has sent us a voice note. And it's actually a customer who bought a Volkswagen up asking for delivery on Monday.
All right. So do you want me to feature that, or...?
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, you can do. But if people do want to send us a message, I'm going to read out the number one more time. 07463 38 33 10. I won't be answering them because I'm going to be going on holiday on Sunday for 10 days. So you will get in touch with Joe, who will hopefully pass them on to John.
He probably won't.
It's very professional. What else has been happening? Car dealer side has been a little bit quiet, John. A little bit quiet. We had a very good September, but October has been, I would say, hard work. It feels like the run into Christmas has started early, but then we spoke to the dealer that we bought the cars from, the imports, and they sold 30 last week. So I was like, oh, maybe it's just me.
Out of about 300, though.
Yeah, I've been doing a little bit of soul searching ever since. So yeah, I've been chatting to a few people, and it is getting a little bit quieter, I think. But yeah, I'm sure we'll cover some of that in the news, because there was an interesting chat that Batch did with Auto Trader this week about the market, the used car market, which I listened to this morning, which I thought was fascinating. So hopefully what Catherine Fairs was saying there about the market being robust turns out to be true for the rest of the year.
Yes, certainly. Well, shall I introduce our guest?
Yeah, please.
Lovely. So our guest this week is Lee Shayler, director at Richlee Motors Company, and of course, co-founder of DMS provider DealerKit. Hello, Lee.
Good morning, guys. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, Lee. Thank you for joining us. We're here for a dual reason. Obviously, DealerKit has recently won our first Car Dealer Recommends product test. We've been extensively using the DMS in the Clever Car Collection for the last year, and we've started writing product tests of those suppliers that we do use, you being one of them, and we've been incredibly impressed with it. You scored fantastically well. Any supplier that gets over 90 gets a car dealer recommended badge of honor, and you were the first to get that. So we'll come on to DealerKit in a moment because I'd like to talk about that. But let's just talk a little bit about your business, because DealerKit's been spun off a car dealership, hasn't it? You know, your car dealers first and foremost. So tell us a little bit about that first.
We are. So sort of just over 40 years ago, it was actually my mum and dad's moved onto a site in Rayleigh in Essex, and they had a little porter cabin, probably the story behind most kind of car dealerships, I guess, but they had 5 or 6 cars. Different time then, because they always tell me stories that my dad loved windsurfing and they would like go to the beach and things like that, and they'd leave their number on the door and they'd be out and they'd get a call to say, oh, can I look at this Suzuki Vitara, whoever it might be. And then they come back to site to see them. So it's like completely different time. But obviously that site grew and grew. And our site in Rayleigh at that time, where we still are now, that's a 2-acre site that was a petrol station. And there's a really lovely story where the guy that owned the site became sort of best friends with my dad. And we rented it from him and his family for 38 years. But we actually managed to buy it at the end of last year. Which was a bit of a challenge because obviously it's a big piece of property and it pushes things like cash flow and things like that. So, you know, you've got to be very careful with the way that you're spending. But it's been really beneficial to us to know that we sort of own that site now. But yeah, so kind of it built from there. And my mum and dad chose to not do the petrol station anymore. And I think it was someone said to my dad, Richard, why do you only just buy and sell 5 or 6 cars? You know, you could do 10 or 20 or whatever the number is. He said, well, I don't have any money to do that. And he said, well, you need to find some. You need to go and, get out and stop going on holiday and windsurfing, I guess. But then they did. And my dad being very focused, he came out of like a body shop background. So that was his main business before. And then really started to kick up with the car dealership and stop selling the petrol because there wasn't enough money in that. And people would steal out the shop and it was all sorts of stuff. But, and that grew, and then it went to obviously all cars. And where we are today, we've got the 2 sites in Essex and our auto centre, which does all of our prep and sort of outside retail work as well, which is in Wickford. So it's just down the road from us.
So were you always going to follow your dad into the motor trade? Was there ever a time that you weren't going to do it, or was it always something you just wanted to do?
The truth is, I wanted to be like a musician. That was like my main thing. And I had 3 jobs. I thought I'd love to be a pilot, I'd love to be an architect, or I'd love to be a musician. And now I'm a car dealer. So I kind of it's the biggest difference. But I think I love working. I mean, me and my dad are like best friends, and we're together every day, and we go on holiday together. We do lots of stuff. We're a really close family, and I kind of left school and I didn't go to university or anything like that. And cars is what I'd always done. And even before that, my grandparents were like cattle like dealers and things like that. So I've always been dealing or trading. And I think I got a lot of good education from that. So I actually posted a photo a few weeks ago because I went to Aston Barclay with my nephew. And I'd been to that same auction to buy livestock with my grandpa, cars with my dad, and now with my nephew, and then hopefully one day my son or daughter could do the same. But yeah, I think it's kind of in the blood, and it was always destined that I'd do that. I probably didn't know that I'd always go into sort of software after that, because it's such a big difference. But I do think though car dealing sets you up for lots of different eventualities, doesn't it? Because no day's the same. You always meet new people, so it can go anywhere, can't it?
Yeah, tell me a little bit about the Richlee business then, in terms of the sort of stuff that you sell and the numbers of cars that you have. I mean, what's your bread and butter?
So we've always sold the family car really, or slightly moving into prestige, but a top end of about 30,000 is really where we are. And we have had some nice kind of supercars, Ferrari, Lamborghini, bits like that, but they're just not things that we tend to stock. And we always look at it, rather than one Ferrari, we want 10 Ford Cougars or something like that to give people selection. However, our site in Billericay is it's a beautiful showroom, and our intention's always been to kind of put the more upmarket car there. And in the last few weeks, we've changed that more to kind of Land Rover, Jaguar, kind of those type of products, something that's a bit more special, but still capping off, maybe sort of 40,000, 50,000, because that's always been our market and where it's been good. And probably our stock level has dropped slightly, maybe slightly to do with buying the site, because obviously we haven't got as much cash as we had before. But pre-COVID, we'd stock sort of 200 cars, and we'd always have, I suppose we'd have between 160 to 180 on site, and we'd hit numbers of sales sort of 130 to 140. That was like our average. However, obviously what happened over COVID, I think most dealers saw the strain where cars just went up so much in value and you couldn't physically buy the same number of cars. So we scaled it back a little bit, and obviously we were working out of a reduced site selection. So we went back to about 140. And that's kind of where we are today, about 140 cars. And out of that, we hope to sell 110, 120. Although I've got to say, it's just a roller coaster at the moment. And I think a lot of dealers would maybe agree with that, because we go from really big highs. We have a couple of months at 120, and then we have a month at 100 or a 95. And you think, how can there be that difference? Because there was never that difference before. We were always very consistent. I think, James, probably you've come into the market at a really tough time, and I've said this to you before. I think car dealing is so different today to it was, and I sound like I'm making myself very old when I say this, but even to 5 or 6 years ago, the market's just different, and you haven't got that continuous flow of customers. I don't think. It might be different for other people, but obviously with DealerKit, I chat to hundreds of dealers now, and it's all the same. There's no constant number. It's just kind of, it is a bit up and down. And as you said, I think last month was a bit of a challenge for everyone, to be honest.
I do find that part of the business really, really difficult to manage and also deal with personally, because you in other businesses you sort of do have a steady flow, but when you're in retail, I've never really run a retail business before. When you're in retail, you're just waiting for people to arrive. You do the same thing, you buy the same cars in hopefully the same way as you've done in the past. You advertise them in the same way, but then you just sort of got to hope that the phone rings. And I find that a bit of a struggle sometimes, because you end up at times like when we're a little bit quiet like we are now, and we were, it sort of happened to us December last year, you do end up doing a bit of soul searching and start asking yourself questions. Have I done something wrong, etc.? When you've been in the business so long, you've probably seen that many times before. How do you cope with that?
You do. I mean, I used to get a Friday night years ago, I get a bit anxious. I think, all right, tomorrow we need to sell 10 or 12 cars, on a Saturday, because that's our number we need to hit. And then we need to do 8 or 10 on a Sunday. And you put yourself under that pressure. And I think that's probably for everyone, whether you've done it. Even my dad's, December comes every year, and he always gets worried about, right, we've got to make sure we're tight for the winter, make sure everything's, we're not spending too much. We'll look at our auto trader bill. We'll look at all of our other running expenses and just check where we are. And I think that comes, if you lose that, you lose the appetite for your business, and it goes the other way, possibly. But yeah, I do think it's a funny one. You turn up on a Saturday morning, you think, right, are 10 fresh people going to come in today to buy cars? Because where are they coming from? You think you've run out of people in the end. But I think if you just, if you stick to what you're good at and you make sure everything's prepped and looks lovely, we take a lot of pride in the appearance of both sites. So we've got people parking all the time. We want to make sure layout is really important for us. And probably over our online presence, we concentrate on the experience at the dealership, which I know is very different to many people. I mean, our website is 10 or 12 years old at the moment, and it is due a massive upgrade. But with DealerKit being so busy, all of our time spent on other dealerships at the moment, and making sure that that's right. And I always say to Matt, if Matt's got a queue of websites to do, I just say, well, you can put ours at the back, so it's not a problem, and we'll carry on. So, and I think where obviously dealers have to have that better online presence, we've always concentrated on the site mainly. But
Yeah, and I remember chatting to Ian about your business.
sorry.
No worries. I remember chatting to Ian about your business, and he was telling us, it's Ian, your colleague, that is, for people listening, and he was saying that because you've been around for such a long period of time, you do get a lot of repeat business. You do have people who just simply turn up and want to buy a car from you. I mean, we're very different to that. We're so new, we have to concentrate online. It must be nice having a showroom where people just arrive to buy a car unannounced.
It is nice. It is nice. And what happens? We do advertise, in all the right places, or the places we think are right. But each month, if I look at our data and I compare it to all of the dealer data that we get from DealerKit, I could look at a dealer that advertises heavily and sells 50-60% off of Auto Trader, for example. But if we sold 110 or 120 cars, we maybe only account for 15 or 20 off Auto Trader. But
Wow.
I think a big part of that is we aren't cheap enough. Maybe we are possibly a little bit expensive, but we do prep our cars to a really high standard. And I always say it to people that come in, it's really about our prep, and I'm sure that there's people that prep as good as we do that are cheaper as well. But we really like to give a good experience when people come in, and we don't ever go after being the cheapest in the market. And it is strange, but we have just got a big customer base, and everyone invariably they come in to see my dad because he's been there for so long. Everyone calls him, Mr. Richie. Is he here? And it's like, he's here. You can talk to him, and they always think they'll get that bit extra deal with my dad. So whether they do or they don't, but yeah, that does happen.
And you chat to a lot of dealers, you through the DealerKit business, which we'll come on to in a moment. What are you hearing about the market at the moment? What's your take on what's happening out there in the used car market?
Well, a lot of our DealerKit dealers are very busy. And that always makes me worry sometimes, because if we have a quiet month and everyone goes, oh yeah, we're doing really well this month, you think, oh no, like what have we done wrong? But I think it is uncertainty. I think there is lots of uncertainty, and obviously I listen to your podcast a lot and come to your events and things like that, and I listen to the thing about electric cars and stuff, and I think that is actually a really big part of it. And there are something I concentrated on from your last event was obviously where I think someone mentioned about maybe incentivizing the used car market for EV.
Yes.
Now, it's great for new cars. And I spoke to a customer the other day. She'd bought a new Ford Puma, £190 a month or something. You think, wow, that's such a cheap car, because we've got older petrol cars that we can't do for that same price. But they've got so many incentives to go to that dealership to buy that car that it really puts a used car dealer at a disadvantage. And not that we sell tons of EV, but obviously on DealerKit, we've got dealers that just specialize in that. And they do very well from it. But I think a little incentive maybe to look at a used car that's an EV might help us in the market a little bit there. And I don't know what that looks like, but I think it could be really helpful.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you on that front, and we have been dipping our toe in the water again with electric cars. I bought an e-Golf last week. It turned up on Monday, as in we bought it. I think we bought it via motorway, but yeah, we picked it up on the Monday, advertised it on the Wednesday, sold it Friday.
Wow.
I mean, incredibly quick. And honestly, we could have sold it about 5 times. There was so much interest in that car. And John actually came down in between the period of it turning up. John, you were not positive about that car. You said it's kind of small, it's a small battery range, etc. So, I mean,
I thought it was a bit niche. Yeah, because even when it came out new, it was sort of behind a lot of other stuff, and they only sold it for about 2 years before the ID3
wasn't
came
it?
out.
How quick that went! I was really surprised. So yeah, I mean, we've been trying electric cars again, and I think there is an opportunity there. But anyway, I'm sure we'll come on to that in the news headlines. Lee, let's talk a little bit about DealerKit then. So you're running 2 businesses, very hard work. How did DealerKit come about? I mean, we obviously use it and we love it, and we've talked about that. How did it come about? Because just before you answer, the thing for me is it's clearly built by dealers. That's the thing I love about it. It's clearly built by people who know how to sell cars. So was that the genesis of the idea?
No, we don't know how to sell cars. I don't know. We just might be good blaggers at it. But Well, I'll tell you what exactly happened. So at 10, it must be longer than that now. It's probably 12, maybe 14 years ago. Oliver, who's my business partner in DealerKit, he and his brother used to build our websites. They used to do our marketing, all of our paper stuff, so like folders, design. Matt, who's actually working with us now, that does all of our website marketing stuff, who you both met. He drew our original Richlee logo and things like that. So we've known them for a really long time. And basically, I went out to some of the kind of I call them competition now, but at that time they were just other DMS providers. And we had quite an old sales team. We were doing things on paper. At the start of the week, Jerry, who was the manager at that time, would have his desk, and it'd be Monday morning. He'd have a stack of folders, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the deliveries on them. And I just thought, we need to clean this up. Like, we can't keep giving people paper invoices for cars. This is not this is not an item that's a low value item. You expect to go to a restaurant and get like a paper written receipt sometimes, and I thought, we can't do that when we're selling something that's £20,000. And I knew that we could do more if we were a bit more efficient. So I went out in the market and I got some of the providers in at that time. And because we had like an older sales team, I think everyone was probably over 50. I was fairly young at that point coming into the business. I was, maybe 18, 20 years old, and, we'd got our new website and things like that. And I think even our mobile website was probably one of the first ones. And I look at screenshots of it today and it just looks so like old fashioned. You can't even believe that it was modern at that point. And basically, I couldn't find anything that we'd be able to use because it would have been too complicated. And maybe because we weren't that advanced as a dealer as some of the main dealerships, but used car dealers that were independents weren't really using any type of software at that time. It was very new. If you had a DMS system, it was a bit unusual. Or you'd be like a supermarket. You'd probably be, in that time, a supermarket might have been 300 or 500 cars. Now it's probably more like 1,000 cars or whatever. So I said to Oliver, is it possible just to build off the back of a website a really simple invoicing tool that we can just fill in online and print out? Perfect. And that is truly how it started. So we got that part done, and then it was kind of like, well, Jerry's got all these folders on his desk, and maybe we could get a bit of thing going for prep. So we kind of thought, well, we'll build a bit of a diary for sort of prep and things like that. From there, it went on. It was kind of, we're not recording customer data very well, so we'll add a CRM. And then, do you know what? Wouldn't it be nice if we could put them all onto this platform, which had no name at that time? It was just the system, as everyone called it. And it went out to all of our advertisers. So we built that in from APIs and stuff. And it kept building and building. And then eventually Oliver, who probably now is the best car dealer out of all of us because he knows everything about the car business. So he's a bit of a threat, I would imagine. Not that he's got any appetite to open a car dealership because he's seen how tough it is. But he then came to us. He would come to us every Thursday and Friday, and he would sit on site. He'd spend a day with the sales guys, a day in the workshop. He'd go down to the body shop, and he would write code whilst he was there. So someone would say, a technician would say, Oliver, I need to be able to do this to a job card. Can you do this? And he would say, yeah, no problem. And he'd go away and he'd build it, and then they would demonstrate it live on site. And Oliver, he probably doesn't like me saying it, but he's a genius. He's fantastic. He's an amazing developer, and he's got a fantastic brain, even for car dealing and stuff, and for accounting. So he was a huge asset at that time because he was literally developing on site. So then dealers would ask us, I'd go to the auction, they'd say, like, what software do you guys use? And I'd say, well, it's kind of our own. It's not, not on aftermarket or anything like that. And I said to Oliver, like, we could sell this to people. And he said, yeah, like, we could. So we kind of asked a few friends initially, and there was a couple of garages local to us that were, that we knew, and we said to them, just try it. There's not a fee for it. Just see if you like it. And they loved it. And then Ian at that time was working for us at Richlee because he'd come out of Jaguar Land Rover, and he was like group manager for all the sites. And because I saw how good he was with the system, we kind of said to him, if we go out to do a demo, why don't we do it together? And we used to use the showroom at Billericay, and we'd set it up, and we'd get like a Domino's pizza in, and we'd bring dealers to site, and we'd give them a full demo. And it was really cool, and we'd get some drinks for them and things like that. And we just saw, and it was so fulfilling to see how people responded to it. And I still get that feeling now. If I go to a dealer, I love going out to do pitches, even though the guys probably don't like me going there so much because they want to keep their customers and they're quite precious over them. But I had a lead come in last night and for like a big car supermarket. And I was like, guys, right, next Friday we'll get down, because I love seeing the reaction from people. And I love knowing that, oh yeah, like my dad thought of that part, or I thought of that bit, or Ian did, or Oliver. I know it sounds crazy, but even our auto entry stuff where the invoice is coming from the auction, I remember when we did that, it was like a game changer for us. And then when I show that to other dealers and they go, oh, that's going to save us so much time and efficiency and things like that. So then 2.5-ish years ago, we founded DealerKit, and then we said, right, we're going to go out to market and we're going to go for it. And since then, it just hasn't stopped. And then obviously Ian came out of Richlee. He was still doing a couple of days at Richlee initially, but he was working 10 days a week, and he actually still does now, as you both know anyway. And then it started to grow. So Ian went full time for DealerKit, selling for us out on the road. And now our team has grown to, we're going to be 10 by Christmas. We've actually made 3 hires the last couple of weeks.
Wow.
And it's just such a different business to we initially started. It was always a bit of a dream, because I thought, wow, maybe it could work. But we used to get nervous. You think, will someone buy this? A little bit like the car situation. You get that anxiety of not really knowing. But it has gone really well.
It's what an incredible story. It must be so exciting to see it out there in the open. I mean, I'm amazed. Well, I'm firstly amazed that you built this product just for yourselves. I mean, how long were you running with it just behind the scenes at Richlee?
For a good 8 or 10 years, probably. Just with us. So, and we spent obviously tons of money on it. Oliver was still working 2 jobs. He had his own business doing development for other people at that time, and he was working for us, for say 2-3 days a week. So he was good value for us in that sense, because we were getting lots of stuff done. But we just found how we could give such a nice experience for our customers that we weren't really worried about going to look for other DMS systems. We just thought, well, we can make ours as good as it can be. And there's a section on there called jobs and promises, and you'll see that as you go through the deal kind of process. And when we first thought of that was initially because we wanted to give customers a handover gift, or we wanted to give them, some type of special treatment when they collected the car. So they were things that maybe other DMS providers wouldn't even consider, because we'd been in it and we knew it. We were like, that's important to us. We want to make sure customers are looked after. So our DMS system was built as much about the customer experience as the dealership experience as well, because both sides are very important, aren't they? And it would be a good 10 years of just using it in there. But that's why we were so confident in the early days that it would work for people. However, we have obviously seen that dealers work in such different ways as well to us. So, and
when you've gone out there and seen these dealers, I mean, they're probably using other DMS providers, or might still be running it off a spreadsheet like we were when you first came to see us,
or bits of paper.
What part of the system is the one that really wins them over? I mean, I know the bits that I love, but I'm just interested to hear what you think that is the bit that kind of, what's the deal clincher?
I know that auto entry is massive, and probably depending on the scale of business that you are, because if you've got say 100 cars in stock and you're paying someone to enter all these documents in, if that can be scanned and it's on the system automatically, some of the accountants won't like me saying this, but that does reduce a staff member in some senses, doesn't it? People do love that, but there's so many bits that people look at on it that. And I look back now and I think, wow, I forgot how key that was for us. I guess what is a favourite part of it? People love obviously the single advertise as well, so you can put it on DealerKit and it runs out to all the ad channels, because that does obviously save time. Ad manager for pricing, so if you're repricing stock, that's a really simple screen to use. Preparation is probably where we are a little bit standalone, when other providers aren't quite so up on the prep side. But where we realised how important the prep side is, we've got that job screen where you can look at each section of the business, and obviously that makes it a very slick process. But I'm interested to know, what do you like the most
Well, I was
about?
going to say, yeah, my favourite thing, and it's just happened, is while you could be doing absolutely anything, and you'll get a text message to say that someone's just sold a car, or that you've had a lead. And I think the bit that really won me over was when you get leads into the business. Without a system like this, you have to be checking your emails constantly and worrying about how quickly you're responding to people. When you get a lead from Auto Trader into DealerKit, you immediately get a text message saying you've got a lead, which means that Joe and I can stop whatever we're doing and go and deal with that lead. And I think for us, it's the importance that's really important, speed of response for us. And DealerKit has helped us sort that out. You can put that on your marketing if you want.
Yeah, we'll cut that piece. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's a really, actually, you say that, and that is a really that's a key point, and it's something we do in all demonstrations. We always make sure we get the mobile number of the directors or whatever, because I know how important that was for me and my dad. Because wherever we were, if we're at the auction out buying, and you saw they'd sold 3 cars, you think, okay, we can buy another 3 cars, or we saw deals being delivered, we know what's gone and where the money's coming in from and things like that. Ultimately, if you're away from the business, you can see how they're performing, but it's not always a good thing, because if you're on holiday and you don't get a text message, you can start to think, you look at your phone, you're like, hang on, is there something wrong with it? I ring Oliver, are the texts working? But yeah, and people's faces light up when you go in a room and we stack a deal and you go, and Ian does, he's classic. He goes, so if you look at your phone now, guys, you should have a text message, and they look at it and they all share and they go, oh, wow, that's amazing. So that is actually that is a key part of it. That is key.
And just before we move on to the headlines, what's next with DealerKit? How big is it going to get?
We've got dreams of being the biggest. We'd love to be the biggest, but we don't want to lose sight of giving good customer service as well for people, because I think that's been a really unique selling point of us, really going out to customers and making sure we do a physical onboarding, making sure that we give good customer care. And if I'm honest with you, that's been a struggle in the speed that we've grown. And I'd openly say this with my heart to our dealers. I think there are times where we kind of have slipped up with a bit of support because we've been inundated with new clients, but we have now put plans in to solve that, and that's our next thing. And we take all feedback like that, because we have to be, we want to be top of the market. We'd love to have 1,000 odd dealers within the next sort of 18 months, 2 years. And we'll only get that by looking after people, but we don't advertise really. It's really only, obviously we come to your events and we do stuff with you guys, but most of our business is really referral. And even the lead that came in last night, it's a referral from another car supermarket. And it's really exciting, and there's a lot of people obviously that are friends of mine in the trade as well, who don't have DealerKit. But I don't want to be the classic salesperson, and I just say, whenever you're ready, if you want to see it, it's fine. And people get a bit precious over their data. I think it was always a bit of a stumbling block for me in the early days, because they were like, so you're a car dealer and we're going to give you all of our data. And I always said to them, well, it's separate for me. I've got no interest in looking in your system and seeing what you're doing. I've got so much to do anyway. And I'm looking at a benefit for the market. I love going out to other dealers and improving their processes when they're doing things right and stuff. And I think now it's turned from a bit of a negative initially, especially locally, to a really big selling point, as you said, the made by dealers for dealers thing, because that's been really key for us.
I do worry a little bit about Ian's phone and the amount of time he must have to spend on it, as well as being on the road, because whenever I send him a message, he always instantly replies. So it is.
He's unbelievable. And I can't just talk about, our whole team's unbelievable. Obviously, Ian, Dan, Harrison, Matt, Brandon, the new guys that are coming that I can't mention. Obviously, they are all fantastic, and I can't speak highly enough of them. They give you 100% every day, but Ian is a super machine. I've never seen. You could be at a restaurant with him, and you'll see a text message come in the group, and he'll nip off to the bathroom, and before he's even got there, he's replied 3 times. You think, how's he done it? But my mum always says to me, she's like, Lee, where's Ian this week? I say, oh, he's Sheffield. He's there. Make sure he gets home. Make sure he doesn't. I said, Mum, I tell him not to work so much, but he loves it. But he loves the product and he loves the customers. He genuinely he loves going to see people, and he's a massive asset to us. We're lucky to have him, definitely.
Yeah, no, you sure are. Thank you so much for sharing an amazing story with us. I wish you all the best with.
Thank you, guys.
With DealerKit and the dealership. Plug time. If people want to get in touch with you, why do you look at me like that, John? Not that sort of technology plugs. Plug time for people who want to get in touch. How do they get in touch with you?
So they can inquire through the website at DealerKit, obviously for our social media side as well. But really, for DealerKit is the best way. So go onto the website, and if you fill in one of our forms, we'll come back to you same day generally to organise a demo or whatever. So no, definitely. Thank you. Guys.
You'll get a text message saying that you've got a lead, and you'll be straight on it like we are. So yeah,
I'll be on it. Yeah, exactly.
Right, John. Let's do some stories. We'll be right back. Now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Autotrader has around 84 million consumer visits each month and connects you with more engaged car buyers than anyone else in the UK. Their technology and data is unmatched and features impressive AI-driven tools like CoDriver, which can help you craft brilliant adverts. It also gives dealers access to AI-driven insights around pricing, demand, and supply. If you're an Autotrader partner, the team are always happy to help you get the very best from your package. Autotrader is committed to helping retailers keep up with the pace of change, stay competitive, and ultimately sell more cars. You can find out more at trade.autotrader.co.uk. This is a paid partnership in association with Dealerway. John, guess what?
Oh, God, you've bought more ducks, haven't you?
No ducks, John. Wrong there. I've actually got a new habit. I've signed up for Dealerway alongside more than 2,500 other rated and vetted car dealers to sell my trade part exchanges. The site is designed for dealers to sell their part exchanges for more money, quickly and easily. There's no seller's fees, and buying a car costs just £99, one of the cheapest around. And when I haven't got the time to list a car myself, I can even WhatsApp them the details and they do it all for me.
That sounds awfully familiar. So are you selling all your stock there now?
Not exactly, John. But if I do have a sudden influx of Kia Picantos, I know where to send them. Dealers can find out more at dealerway.co.uk. Now, back to the podcast.
So James and I are going to run through our favourite stories of the week, and at the end, Lee gets to decide which one of us chose the best ones and who's the winner. I am going to start. I'm going to start talking about. Well, I'm starting because I won last week. Did I mention that?
Okay. What is the score at the moment? Do you know?
What's what? The score? I don't care, James.
I do. I genuinely do.
I do. All I care about how.
Is it like an all-time score, or is it a score?
No, we've got a new season running, which we started because we forgot what the old score was.
I don't remember when the new season is. This season autumn? I mean, I don't really understand that. I'm going to start talking about the stories now because. And important news this week is there's been some news from the FCA about how payouts will work as a result of all the car finance saga, as I'm going to call it. I'm still going to call it a saga because it's not yet come to an end, this particular thing. I suppose it won't come to an end until everyone's had their payout. So they came out with this news this week while James and I were in a spa, and he diligently got out of the pool to go and write this story. I stayed in because my Apple Watch hadn't told me that I'd hit my move goal yet. So we were both doing very important work, I think, that day. But anyway, I digress. So the news is some 14 million car buyers they estimate are set to receive payouts. They've set the payouts at £700. Not sure how they come to that figure, but that is the amount. Is it not, James? Is that a fixed amount? They're just going across the board?
No,
£700?
that is a fixed amount. You haven't made that up.
Excellent news, because I read it in this story. So the total bill to lenders is estimated at £8.2 billion, which is quite chunky. I think that's still probably lower than a lot of the lenders were estimating once upon a time. This is not a worst case scenario for them. I think they're reasonably happy with this, as happy as one can be about handing out money that you've already made. I mean, the FCA have said the majority of motor finance agreements will not qualify for compensation. And that sounds like not a lot will, but actually it's 44%. So yes, technically the majority will not be getting any payouts. But 44% of all finance agreements since 2007, well, it's 2007 to November 1st, 2024. So that's a big chunk of, 17 years worth of car finance. And they reckon 44% of people are eligible. So the way that this is going to work is the FCA have got 3 tests to determine whether you're eligible to receive these payouts, and you only have to sort of tick one of the boxes. So one is that there was a discretionary commission arrangement, which is the thing where the dealer is allowed to change the interest rate in order to get higher commission. So if that's one box ticked, you've got some compensation. The other one is a high commission arrangement, which they say would be 35% of the total cost of credit and 10% of the loan. Another is this contractual arrangement or tie between the lender and the car dealer. So in other words, which provided exclusive or near exclusive rights to the lender to provide credit. So presumably, James, that is, you are a franchised Citroen dealer and you're not allowed to use any finance company apart from, let's say, Stellantis Finance. Is that the idea?
I think so. I also heard that it could possibly be, sometimes when you have to use a finance provider because you've got stock funding with them,
Right.
it might be those sort of exclusive relationships that were a problem. But we don't actually know. I think it could just be as simple as, like you say, Volkswagen only using Volkswagen Financial Services. It could be something as simple as that.
See, to me, that's the one that is going to tick most of the boxes for this. These payouts. So that's an interesting one there. I mean, I've sort of outlined everything about this story now, so I'm going to hand it over to you, James, in a minute. But I'm just going to point out one thing, which is Nick Arathi, who's the chief executive of the FCA. Obviously, it's got a statement. This came out as a press release, presumably, didn't it, James? But it just caught my eye and kind of, I think, will annoy a lot of people. So as part of his statement, he said, many motor finance lenders did not comply with the law or the rules. Now we have legal clarity. And all right, okay, well, you can say there's been a court case, it's been decided that it was not within the law, because that's literally what that has got us to. But the rules, well, the FCA were deciding the rules, and I think a lot of the lenders would disagree that they weren't following the rules.
They were the rules.
Exactly.
This is the problem. This is the bit that's frustrated me the most, annoyed me the most about this announcement. It's the fact that the FCA is sort of kind of pushing the blame onto the car dealers and the industry, and it's like, hang on a minute.
Well, they're certainly pushing it onto the lenders.
Well, and also the brokers, as they say, which are the dealers. They kind of, this is, unfortunately, it tars the industry with the same brush, and it's actually the FCA are the ones that came up with the rules in the first place. This is the bit that cheeses me off. It's like they were the rules. Nobody was doing stuff that they weren't allowed at the time, and also we've come up with this. We've said it before, but I mean, the consumers need to take some responsibility for signing these deals. They wanted the car, so they would have seen the documents. It's not like the documents were hidden from them. Maybe the commission they didn't know about, but they certainly knew what they were signing up to in terms of the deal when it came to buying from a dealer that just could only use Volkswagen Financial Services, for example. They had other options. If
I dropped a bit of a bombshell for you guys, and I'm not alone in this, our finance commission for Richlee is more now than it was at the time they're saying all this was going on, when we can manipulate rates. And I always say that, and it does get to me, because it's like the day before before theft was illegal, and someone was arrested. It's going back on a law, isn't it? And like you said, I think it was the law, and I think it was clear at that time. I know that we used to tell customers that we are getting a finance commission for facilitating this loan. But what we would do, we'd have regular customers would come in. We've got one customer that's bought 102 cars from us. Now, we would give him a super low APR rate. He'd be on 4.9, 5.9%. We'd have no commission out of it. But we knew that the next time he come to change, because if in 6-8 months' time that guy wants to change his car again, we never want him to be negative equity. So we think we get him on the lowest rate. And then there'd be other times where a customer would come in and say, look, I can't get to that high exchange value that you want, but you are taking the finance with us. If I lift the finance rate by 0.5% or 1%, I get another £300 or £400 from the finance company. They might not be exact figures, but it gives me the chance to be able to give you the negative equity you've got coming out of your car, and we can get a deal together. So I think it's limited, the deals that you can do. But giving everyone this one fixed rate, I think it's even worse now that it's rate for risk. Is rate for risk not more discrimination than a dealer deciding how to do it in their showroom? I know not all dealers are the same, and I know that it definitely was manipulated and used, not in the correct way all the time. But I do 100% think that people need to take a bit of responsibility at some stage for that. As you said, James, it's not right. And for those finance companies to have to pay out £700 per customer, we weren't earning £700 per customer commission, were we? Nothing like it. So I don't know where the number even comes from, but
I think it's the average commission plus interest over those.
How have they determined the average commission? I suppose.
Well, the thing is, they've got to come up with a number, haven't they? And this, I do sort of understand that it is very, very complicated because, as you've perfectly outlined there, Lee, like all deals are different. Every single deal is different, and it's customer, car, lender specific. So to come up with a redress scheme that covers all is very, very difficult for the FCA. So I can see why they've just had to come up with a number. But I do think that number will be tested by some of these claims management companies, because for some, it will be too low.
Yes.
And whereas for others, it might be too high. But they do need to come up with one figure. And I think the thing about this scheme that is good is that it's easy. The lenders are going to have to write to the customers, not the other way around. The customers are not going to have to do the application. I've had plenty of car finance over that period of time. I think when we were talking about it the other day, John, probably 5 or 6 car finance deals. I have no idea whether it was with a car dealer that only had one lender. I mean, it's just so it should be up to the lender to tell me. Which is what this scheme will be, and we'll get a letter. People will get a letter within 6 months of this coming out, saying you're going to be due the £700.
Well, I should say you can still write to myself, can't you? Because you've moved about 5 times since 2007, presumably. So
I'll tell you a funny story. We actually had, because obviously we had a lot of unhappy customers calling us and saying, you didn't tell me about this commission, and it was like, well, we most likely did, but it wasn't even it was not the law to tell you that we're getting commission. It was an agreement between us and a finance lender, and it's the reason we use that lender. We are a business. You don't go to Tesco's and ask them how much the tin of beans cost you or whatever. It's different. But we had a lady that worked for us for a long period of time as our finance manager, and she tried to make a claim against us for the finance commission. But I think she probably was privy even to her own finance proposal at that time, because that was her job. So she bought a car from us, and I was shocked. I can't believe it. But it's what people do, isn't it? And it's how much time people have to be able to go through their documents. But if someone's getting paid out £700, it's a lot of money, isn't it, as well? So people are going to be on it, and they're going to be chasing it for sure.
Yeah, it's 14 million people that are going to have £700 in their bank account. I mean, it's a big bonus, really, isn't it? And I think, well, what happened with them? What will happen with the cash? PPI, people spend it on cars, so you never know. Fingers crossed for the industry. Well, John, I'll move us on, shall I? Move us on. I'm going to pick a story about the supercar dealer GVE London. So this is the supercar dealer that was, I mean, how are we going to put this? Very big on social media. As
are you.
I'm not, John. I'm not. But they were incredibly big on social media. They shouted about what they were doing all the time, made a lot of noise, had a huge following on YouTube and TikTok and other websites. But unfortunately, they went into administration, as we've reported on this podcast before, about 3 weeks ago. The trouble started off the back of these are all claims, we don't actually know, but the sale or return of these supercars. So this company, when we went to see them, did a video, John, they told us 80%, was it? 80% of their cars in stock were on sale of return, which is a huge amount. And that sale or return business is very tricky to operate, especially when you're doing it with a consumer, because at what point in time do you pay the money? You take a deposit from someone who wants to buy that car. It's like when all this money changes hands is sort of up in the air a little bit, isn't it? It also does lead you into big problems when those cars go wrong. These supercars are very, very expensive to fix. I think even they were admitting that when we went to see them for that video, saying how they'd been caught out with this in the past. And when you're only taking a margin, that margin needs to be very big to cover those potential claims, because you can't go back to the person who sold you the car on sale or return. You are, as the dealer, liable to stump up those.
Yeah, like sale or return. Sale or return must work if you're an art dealer or something like that. Like something that's not actually got a warranty attached to it and is not actually going to go wrong. But
it's dangerous.
Lamborghini is a bit of a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, or a McLaren, or something notoriously that is notoriously going to go wrong. So they were clearly caught out. So what we've seen is that they have gone into administration. It was caused a bit of a stir online. A huge number of people looked at the story on our website. There was quite a few social media influencers shouting about it on TikTok, which kind of fanned the flames for this story, really. But we've actually now seen the first administrator's report. It's a little bit of a two-pronged story, this one, because the first administrator has resigned after just 22 days and handed it over to another administrator. Not sure what's happened there. But the first administrator's report is out. It shows that the company had 14 creditors who are owed a combined £449,000. So that's company creditors, so that's companies it owes. But the bit that worried me is there's 9 consumers here that are owed £700,000.
Sorry, 9 consumers?
9 consumers.
£700,000 between 9 people.
Yeah, which is, it just shows you that it's probably, what may have happened there is the cars come in, as sold, and they haven't had their money. So it's, it's that point that was very, very worrying for me. I think this story has got a long way to run. Apparently, unsecured and HMRC claims are expected to be written off. And there's a shortfall of around £1.8 million already. So a disastrous case here, and one that's seriously worrying. It's horrible to see a business go into administration, but obviously off the back of that, you have a huge fallout, and 9 customers are owed a huge sum of money. So yeah, I picked that story because we've had a little glimpse into what happened at GVE, and I think as this administrator's work continues over the next few months, we're going to see even more. What did you think?
On a different note, whenever we have a story about a company going into administration now, which sadly happens now and again, I look at the amount the administrators are being paid, and I think, yes, I wish I'd become an accountant.
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, like the administrator who's gone after 22 days, 22 days of work or whatever is £137,000.
That's not bad, is it?
I'm going to have to up my day rate, I think.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the thing that always gets me when companies, when this happens, the fallout that you get from other dealers or people in the trade where they are torn apart by people online. I just find it so distasteful that people express their feelings so openly about someone going out of business, because I just think we all know business is really hard, and I'm not condoning operations there. I've got no idea about that business whatsoever, but obviously to owe £700,000 to individual people doesn't take long when you're selling cars that are £200,000-300,000 as it is, which is what happens. But it just amazes me that the people that get on the bandwagon, even for the Kazoo thing, everyone knows Kazoo wasn't the car dealer's best friend, but there were hundreds, thousands of people losing jobs, still people out of pocket now. And I just always find it like so distasteful to see people online that do it for, I suppose, presence, don't they? And to get their voice heard. You know, and you guys do a really good job. You have to report on this sort of stuff, but you do it really respectfully. But it's just incredible. And I always think, wow, if something happens to anyone, how many people jump on that bandwagon to say how bad they were doing or this or that? But that seller return model is something that we've never ever, we do it on the odd occasion. If it's a car that we're unsure of that we wouldn't normally buy, if it's a bit expensive or whatever, just like those cars. I mean, who really wants to, you know, have in stock 20, 25 Lamborghinis, because the risk is huge and the investment is unobtainable sometimes, isn't it? But I think it can happen a little bit with stock funding as well. If you look at platforms for stock funding, say where you have to put 25% of the balance in, it always works slightly better, because if you're a dealer that's fully funded, and I'd call it living off the top all of the time, you still have your same running costs. But on a week where you might sell cars that have got no margin in, if you've got no money coming in, you can't pay your staff. And that's how I see this has happened for GVE, is that at least if you sell a Lamborghini and it's £200,000 and that money comes into your bank and it's your money, even if you lost 10 grand that week, you've still got £200,000. But when you're giving back the customer, you know, near enough £200,000 for that car, or you've earned £2,000 out of it and you've got your £10,000 worth of running costs, you've got no hope to pay it, and that's a slippery slope, isn't it? But I think seller return could be linked to funding in that way, and I think dealers have got to be really careful. But it is a shame, but it's just amazing numbers, aren't they? It's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you'd want a massive margin, wouldn't you, to sell those supercars? Like, just the worry of them coming back and you being hit with a big warranty claim would be huge, wouldn't it?
And what's big enough? You know, we have sold, like I said to you, Ferrari and things like that before. The customer's always super picky, and they should be, because they're spending so much money. But what do you take out of one? Yeah, if you got £100,000 car, you'd want, if you had 10 cars at £10,000, you'd want £1,000 minimum when you're out of those. So is £10,000 enough to warrant a Ferrari when, you know, to put a warranty on it's probably £2,000? You know, it's so difficult. But obviously, people that specialise in that market do it day in, day out, and they're very successful with it. And it's always made me nervous, but something that I always look at and think, wow, it'd be lovely just to have just all beautiful cars. But not that a full KA is not beautiful, because to that person, that's their pride and joy, isn't it? So
exactly. I mean, I love the Skoda Yeti that we've sold today. You know, I mean, they are lovely cars.
Is it finally sold?
That's the DealerKit notification I just got from Joe. He's just
fantastic!
Yeah, very happy, very happy. wedge that one in there. John, I think it's your go.
Okie doke. I'll try and do this quickly because we're running out of time. I'm going to talk about some SMMT figures, which we've bundled up into the headline of New EV sales reach record levels in September as the electric car grant, I'm quoting, provides added impetus. Love that word, impetus. But anyway, EV sales have hit a record high in September. SMMT reckons 72,779 pure battery electric cars were registered last month. And the overall new car market has had quite a bit of a shot in the arm as well. It's grown by 13.7%, I assume that's year on year, to 312,000 registrations in September, which is the best September performance since 2020, which presumably the September 2020 was that like suddenly, you know, all the pent-up demand was back, or was that?
Yeah, I think it was.
That seems a long time ago, because it was. So I thought this was quite interesting and quite good news. I think you have to temper it slightly with, was September the first month for the EV grant? I assume it was. And there was number one, it's a September, you know, registration anyway, but there was a bit of hanging on, I think, wasn't there, for the grant to actually kick in. So probably there were some delayed transactions certainly for retail buyers. I don't know what the fleet situation is with the grant. I don't know if it quite applies. It's a little bit confusing. But I think there's been a bit of a delayed reaction, and that's happened. So that's all good. I don't want to make you talk about the EV, Grant James, so I'm just going to breeze past that because you'll go on a rant again. But I'm also going to talk about the top 10 best-selling cars in the UK because there's been some interesting entrants.
I'm glad you're covering this because it was crazy cars.
Yeah. So I'm sure people listening have seen it already, but the top 10 in reverse order. Number 1 is the Kia Sportage, no change there. Number 2, Ford Puma, yeah, fine. Then the Qashqai. Then the JQ7. So the JQ7, which is only available as a petrol and a PHEV, was 4th in
6,500 of those were sold in September alone.
Outselling the Vauxhall Corsa, Hyundai Tucson, Volkswagen Golf. Amazing, really. And considering that arrived in January. With no dealers whatsoever, pretty much. So that is really surprising. BYD CLU has also crept in at number 6, is that? Yes. I can count. And the MGHS. So 3 of the top 10 are now Chinese in there. 4 if you count Volvo.
I think, if anything, if you want to get any idea of how the industry's going, it's that top 10, isn't it? I mean, that is just. I saw that that data, JQ7 in 4th place, and I just thought that is absolutely crazy. And you see them everywhere now, don't you? They are absolutely everywhere. But they're so cheap. And actually, for the people want a car like that. And there are many of them, and actually, you look around the Nissan Qashqai just above it, the Sportage in number 1. It's those sorts of buyers. It's a rival to them at far less price.
Well, do you know the JQ's not even that cheap comparatively? I think there's some fantastic deals on it, I'm sure, but it's not on list price terms really, really cheap. It's quite cheap. But I'm going to bang my drum again about local dealers because I think, what has helped the success, apart from, it's a cheap car, all right, but we've had lots of cheap cars come in before, have we not? Across the many years. What am I on about? We've had lots of, lots of brands have come in. You've had your Kias and your Hyundais and your Broduas and your Protons or whatever. And it takes a long time for them to make an impact. And I think the difference has been, number 1, cars got really expensive. So your average Ford or whatever is now a lot more expensive than it used to be. But also there's been an abandonment of a lot of retail sites across the UK. A lot of manufacturers have scaled down dramatically, and people like buying from the place round the corner. And when there's a sensible looking car for a sensible price in that showroom that used to have Ford or Stellantis in it, they're going to buy that instead because they trust the person that sold it to them last time. And I think that is a massive thing. And like Cherry JQ say the same thing. That's a really big thing for them, is that they've got all these local dealers on board, small, generally speaking, family-run dealer groups have had a punt and have had tremendous success with them.
Kick in the teeth for agency sales, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
100%. But it's a bit, that list, actually, I think for a used car dealer is a bit of a concern as well, because there's cars on this list like the JQs that we haven't really seen in the used market yet, have we? They're too new for it. But it's interesting you say that, obviously the Puma being number 2, because like I said earlier, that $190 a month for a new electric Puma is just so cheap. But are these cars selling in vast numbers because of the deals, because they are so cheap? It's a no-brainer, isn't it? You aren't going to look at a 3-year-old Puma at $250 a month when you can have that new one, and you'll put up with it being electric if you're not really an EV person, because you'll think, it's a benefit for everyone. But that's really interesting. Really interesting.
I mean, those JQ7s are available for £250 a month for just doing a quick search.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of car for £250 a month.
So this podcast has been brought to you by JQ. JQ. The car of tomorrow. It's interesting you mentioned the Puma, Lee, because I was scribbling my review the other day of the JQ5, which I
read it this morning, John. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Which is the sort of Puma-sized one that they've just brought out, which still looks like a tiny Range Rover. And actually, the Puma Electric beats the JQ Electric on price just by virtue of the enormous grant that's on it. So I thought that was quite interesting. So I think maybe the grant on the Puma Electric is well, definitely the grant on the Puma Electric is making a big difference, because $3,500 off It's a big chunk of money for the Puma, isn't it?
They fit your charger at home, I think, as well. So it's like it's great, and it's forcing those electric vehicles into the marketplace, isn't it? Which is great. But I don't think we're seeing the appetite on the used car side still. But we don't stock many, so you kind of I can't measure it. But obviously, I look at the dealers we go out to for DealerKit, and they all say very similar. And I think actually dealers would be very nervous, with the exception probably of the Puma and the Sportage and maybe the Cash Guy. Could I honestly say that dealers would go out with a JQ, a BYD, or an MG with confidence to buy it as a used car? I don't think so. Because they terrify me at the moment, and not because there's anything negative about them, but I would be, if I was, in that market, it would worry me, definitely.
It's early days, isn't it? That's the thing. And it's like, what's the after sales proposition look like at this point? What's the parts? What's all that? We don't really have clarity on all that stuff yet. And they'll all talk a good game, of course. But I doubt there's, as we know with MG, we've spoken to lots of MG. Well, no, not MG dealers, James. We've spoken to lots of dealers who have bought secondhand MGs and have been waiting for a long time for parts to arrive. Have we not?
Just want to tag on to the end of this story. I mean, I wrote about used car prices in my Substack this week, and part of it was about Chinese vehicles. And I think, Lee, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head there, because you mentioned about used cars, and why would you go out and buy the used car if you can get the new one cheaper? And it's the same with a lot of these Chinese entrants. They're coming in, offering these cars at very low prices, £250 a month. I mean, Darren Martin, who does some consultancy for Picasso, the pricing company, said to me, I mean, his quote was, if a used 1-year-old Range Rover Evoque with 10,000 miles costs, say, £37,000, and a brand new JQ7 costs £28,000, the savvy buyer is now actively considering the latter, particularly if finance rates are subsidised. What effect, he said, does that have on the 1-year-old Evoque? It has to have an impact. So it's going to hit used car market as well when these really cheap new car deals are out there and consumers are lapping them up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's quite funny as well. I was in the high street with my dad last week. We walked past a car. He said, you know what? He said, I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. I'm a car dealer, but I don't even know what that is. And you see cars, you think, what on earth is it? You buy a BYD, but I don't know if it's a Seal or if it's a 7 or or whatever it's going to be. And it is a bit pot luck for that at the moment, isn't it? But they are fantastic to look at. I mean, some of those JQs just look really, like you said, they are like a mini Range Rover. They make is it the bigger one they make that's a bit like a Defender, don't they? It's quite square and quite cool.
But, different names.
Is that the Yang Wang? Our favourite. I think it might be.
I think that's BYDs, isn't it? I can't. I'm the same as you. They've each, there's about, I don't know, 20 different Chinese car companies, and they each have about 5 different sub brands that I cannot possibly comprehend. I'm driving another electric Chinese car next week, but anyway,
says our Chinese car.
Let's move on.
I don't think we can move on, John. I would love to wedge one more in, but we're well over time, so maybe we should just call it a day.
Oh, lovely. Right, well then, Lee, before I ask your verdict, are there any stories you think we've missed this week?
No, I don't know. I think it's very difficult to pick between those, because obviously, the FCA thing is a huge thing for all dealerships, all finance companies, and it's been a long time in the making, isn't it? The GV story obviously is important to the market, and it's very sad, and there's hope that those people can get their money back somehow. But I think that top 10 list is actually quite important to car dealing going forwards, because that could pave the way for the future. And I see the FCA things, the past, the people have got their payouts for it. We probably won't hear any more of it. And the GVE is obviously sad, but there's lots of companies that have struggled that might be, less famous than them, that are going through hard times. I would pick probably the top 10, because I think that's going to transition and pave a way for the future of car sales. And I think that's where we've got to sort of look now. So I'll pick the top 10.
Sounds like you've won that, John.
All right, we'll take
Sorry,
it.
James.
No, that's fine. No, that is
I'll vote
fine.
for you next time, I promise.
Thank you. I mean, I need to find out what the scores are in the series. I expect us to do that for the next podcast, John. But I'm not here next week, so hopefully whoever fills in for me can win.
Yeah, I won't be looking up the scores. Lovely. Well, that's all jolly nice, isn't it? Thank you very much. Well, it's all that is left for me to say is thank you to Lee for coming on today and sharing your story as well about DealerKit. I look forward to watching DealerKit the movie in the
Come to
same vision
Netflix
as like the
soon.
Social Network, that sort of thing.
That'd be amazing. I don't think anyone wants a movie about me, but we'll see. So.
If there is, can I play Ian Cooper, please?
You can. Yeah, you can. I always say there's if you watch the film Blackberry, I think it's quite good. It's quite good about tech startup type of thing. And I always think Ian's like that guy that goes out that just wants it all now and whatever. But you can have that part, James. No problem at all. Yeah,
perfect.
No problem.
Thank you.
Lovely. And thank you as well to James for letting me win. And thank you for listening. We will be back next week with another episode. Make sure you're subscribed so you'll be notified when that goes live. Don't forget to phone James while he's on holiday using the number in the show notes below. Please send us some voice notes and then we might play them. If you want to check out the stories mentioned today, they're also in the show notes below, or you can head to cardealermagazine.co.uk for all sorts of news besides what we've already talked about. Thanks for listening and goodbye.